Good evening, everyone. Today is June 12th, 2017, and I welcome all of you to tonight's Town Council meeting. What I would ask that everybody in the audience do is stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Dale, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Council President Healy.
Here.
Council Vice President Collins.
Here.
Councilman DeCruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Gledhill.
Here.
Councilman Veely.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Before we get started on item number 4, I just want to ask the members of the council and those other members here to make sure you speak directly into the mic and have it close to you. I've had several phone calls that we are unable to be heard when people are at home watching it. So if you could please speak clearly and right directly into the microphone. Thank you. That brings us to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes of previous meetings, both A and B, the work sessions and the regular session of May 22nd. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve items 4A and B.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 5, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to page 2, item number 6, licenses. Resolution granting a victualling license to the Flats, which is listed as an LP but will be changing to, or has changed to, an LLC. 501 High Street in Wakefield, subject to administrative approvals. And the application is put forth by Jane LeBlanc. Is anybody here to speak on behalf of the Flats?
Good evening, Joshua Stroka for the applicant, the Flats LLC, and Miss Jane LeBlanc. We did submit that application originally as an LLP, but it was going to be a partnership. They've since decided that Jane's going to go alone as a solo LLC. So we filed all that paperwork with you, and I believe with the Secretary of State. So
Right, so that paperwork is already filed?
everything is filed. Yeah, but
And-
we do know we need to modify the application, and are happy to do that.
So they're doing obviously the victualling license first. We haven't gotten to the public hearing on the liquor license, but so for purposes of the victualling license, I assume you're asking that they amend that application to an LLC from an LP.
Correct.
So
Correct.
If they move on it, it will be as an LLC.
Correct. Yes. Thank you.
Do we have any questions here?
No, no.
I won't be talking to him later on anyway, so I'll make a motion to approve license 6A.
Second.
As amended.
With the
As,
amendment?
yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries.
We'll see you for the liquor license.
We'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you.
Moving on to 6B, a resolution granting a private detective license to Michael Varnum, Bass Road in Wakefield. Any discussion here? Please come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've never gone through this before. I've filed the license to initiate a private investigative business. I've had, as my application indicates, an extensive background in law enforcement and in the private investigative business, and am seeking a state license through this council.
Any questions?
For the record, Mr. Barnum was interviewed by both Captain Ewing Chow and by Interim Chief Jaber. Both individuals have recommended council give consideration for the award of this license.
Thank you.
Motion to approve agenda item 6B.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any oppositions? Seeing none, motion
Aye.
carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item number 7A, a public hearing to consider a request for additional operating hours between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Casback LLC, McDonald's here in town on Tower Hill Road. Application by Paul Farron. Is somebody here to speak on their behalf?
Hi, my name is Joe Bedoya. I'm area supervisor for McDonald's. I'm representing Paul Farron today. Our Wakefield McDonald's has been 24 hours since 2015. Mr. Farron took over that restaurant about a year ago, and he's looking to continue the 24-hour operation.
The department's reviewed that, police department's reviewed that, and we've had no complaints that that would indicate a need to reconsider this, and the appointment is recommended.
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion to close the
But,
public
we
hearing.
just asked, make sure that there's no one in the public who wants to be heard.
All right.
Is there anybody who wishes to come and speak to this? Okay, seeing none.
You can close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 7A, do we have a motion on the table?
Motion to approve item 7A as presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Second public hearing is to consider a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown according to the laws of 1956, which would basically be a Class B victular liquor license. And the application, again, is by the Flats. We would need to, at this point in time, update that to increase our victualating licenses by 1. And it would be for the floor bar and dining areas. And again, this license will be contingent, is contingent upon compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees that may be in arrears to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations. Would you like to come up and speak?
Thank you. I would have Jane please come up to
Sure.
answer any questions. And Jane, could you please state your name for the record, please?
Jane LeBlanc.
And Jane, you are the sole member of the Flats LLC, is that correct?
Yes.
And in fact, Jane, you actually have about 20 years' experience in the restaurant industry, is that correct?
I do, yes.
And that's including either working in local restaurants or taverns, as well as being part of an organization that helps set up franchises, initial setup for franchises, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And most notably probably in the area would be Bertucci's.
Yes, I was part of their opening teams.
Great. And what can you tell us about the menu for the Flats?
Barbecue. Smokehouse barbecue and locally sourced, hopefully some Sons of Liberty barbecue sauce and Pat's Farm meats and all good stuff.
All right, so you're going to go for the local flavor.
Yes,
try to keep
family
it a little
style.
Southern. Okay. Yeah, and I think you noticed that she does have some family style offerings on the menu as well. All right, so what do you think your hours of operation will be?
With the support I have, 7 days a week, lunch and dinner. So 11 to 11.
And just to be clear, it is the 501 Main High Street, which is the old Gero's restaurant, just so we're clear on that, just for the Rhode Islanders in the room that need the Rhode Island directions, right? And actually, that's important for two reasons. Number one, that it was a restaurant, so she's just going to continue to run it as such. Everything is there pretty much to do so. And then secondly, it's a commercial building, so no issues with lighting, drainage, food storage area, parking, plenty of parking there, with no issues with that. So as far as the beverages that you're going to be serving, can you tell us what your plans are for serving beverages to the patrons?
Well, again, I'd like to use the local brewery that we have in town and our local bourbon and definitely some margaritas, so I'd like the liquor license.
And how do you feel that serving alcohol will enhance your business?
end of the long day, you want to have a beverage with your ribs. I think a margarita or a cold beer would be great.
But and also being family style, families going to come to eat, and they're going to do what they
Yes.
normally do, come and eat and drink and be merry, right?
Yes.
Why not? I have no further questions. I'd leave it to the council for any further questions if you have any.
Before we ask the public to come forward.
Right, I was just going to say, for the record, you're asking the council to amend the application to change the LP to
sorry.
an LLC?
Yes, sir.
And we do have, before I ask the public to come up and comment, Dale does have some.
Yes, there's also a communication from, dated June 7th from Luther Clay, who is listed on the application as the partner. He wants to remove his name from the application because he is no longer a member.
That's correct.
At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing to any comments from citizens who may want to discuss this matter. Please come forward and state your name for the record. Excuse me.
My name is Steve Jarzenbeck. I'm an abutter. I own the property directly in back of the restaurant. I've owned it for about 20 years. Congratulations. Welcome to the neighborhood. My concern is the trash in the dumpster and the frequency of pickup and what your plans would be for that problem or the situation. In the past, there have been several tenants in the restaurant that have. It's just been a deplorable situation for dumpsters, especially in the summer. I just hope that the new tenant, new owner, would be responsible and have a weekly pickup and just have a neighborly approach to the trash and how it's handled. The existing dumpster is just open. It used to have a surround around it that no longer works. It's been knocked down in the past. So for my sake and for my tenant's sake, an enclosure around the dumpster would be preferred. I don't know what the plans are, so if you could speak to that, I would appreciate it. Okay? Thank you.
I definitely plan to box in the trash, put a lock on it so it's not overflowing, and it is definitely my responsibility. I think trash is gross too. So, yeah, definitely contained. I think that's better for business as well.
Any other comments? Any comments here at the table?
Jane, I just had one question. The experience that you've had in the restaurant industry, has there been management experience?
Yes, in Boston mostly.
Okay. Great.
Will you be a single-member LLC?
Yes.
Do you live locally?
Yes. I've lived here since 1978, with the exception of college in Boston, and came back.
Were you familiar with it when it was Giro's?
Yes, yep.
Great.
As a kid, I think a lot of my generation went with their parents, so.
I remember those days.
Well, it's nice to have somebody local buy it and sort of resurrect it. I'm excited to see what you do.
Any other comments?
Are these your own recipes, or?
They're on their way to being. There's a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error.
A lot of R&D right now. A lot of R&D.
Okay. If you need any testers, let us know.
Motion to close public hearing 7B.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, let's move forward. Do we have a motion to grant?
Actually, you want to bring 13A forward first
Okay.
and vote on increasing the number of victualling liquor licenses from 27 to 28. Then you can go back to grant it.
Okay, so it'll go away yet. Let's go to,
13A.
On page 4.
Motion to amend the number of Class B victualler liquor licenses from 27 to 28.
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. Let's go back to item number 6B. Excuse me,
7B.
7, I'm sorry, in the public hearing, to the Class B victual liquor license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages as the LLC by Jane LeBlanc, managing partner of, well, actually the only partner right now, for the floor bar and dining areas at the Flats. And again, contingent to all regulations, rules, taxes, fees by the town and fire codes.
Motion to approve item 7B as amended.
Do you want to add a condition about the enclosure around the trash or not? I just bring it up because if you do, this is the time. If not,
I mean, she's willing to do it, so I think it's okay if we add it.
Sure. So with just a slight amendment to the approval of the resolution that you contain the trash, and if it is by enclosing it or finding a more feasible way as to not disturb the abutting property owners and the neighbors.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any oppositions? Congratulations and good luck.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to public hearing 7C. This is a public hearing to consider the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance relative to Article 3. Supplementary regulations, Article 12. Appendix A, use code descriptions pertaining to the regulation of solar energy systems. And we do have an exhibit, but I know that we also might have a presentation with PowerPoint or a slideshow.
Just give me 1 second. Get us going. Okay, good evening. We're going to talk about zoning amendments to regulate and allow solar energy systems in South Kingstown. You have a pretty lengthy memo in front of you, so I won't go into too much detail except to highlight the main points. As you are aware, discussion of comprehensive solar amendments for the zoning ordinance began with an application by Northeast Solar and Wind last April. They wanted to permit by special use permit farm solar power generators, generator installations in R80, R200, Industrial 1, 2, 3, GI, and open space and high flood danger overlay districts. Over the spring and summer, the planning board discussed it, and in October of 2016, you voted to refer it back to the planning board for a comprehensive look as opposed to just farm generator installations. So the planning board discussed it beginning in October, and then on May 9th recommended the version of the draft ordinance that you have in front of you. So what this ordinance does is separates solar energy systems into two types. First, you have accessory solar arrays. Those are intended to produce no more than 120% of the energy necessary to support the principal uses on the parcel. Accessory solar energy or accessory solar arrays are allowed by right in all zones, but in the OS and which is open space or high flood danger overlay zones, they would have to be roof mounted. The thought behind that was that in those zones you don't really want to take up ground. In a high flood danger zone, you don't want ground mounted systems to have the capacity to be washed away, and in an OS you don't want to really take up that open space land with a ground mounted system. Principal solar energy systems are those that are the only use on a parcel. So if it's just an solar energy array, then it would be principal. And if it's an array that generates more than that 120% of the necessary energy for the parcel, it would be considered principal. Principal arrays are further classified into small, medium, and large scale based on their size, and then are regulated by zoning district, based on that classification. The planning board wanted to require that in the commercial zones, commercial neighborhood, downtown, highway, and waterfront, that those be roof mounted so that they weren't taking up the limited commercial land that we have available in town for a ground mounted system. So the principal solar energy systems are small, medium, and large, small being 0 to 1,750 square feet, medium between 1,750 and 40,000, and then large 40,000 or more. All scales of principal solar energy system are proposed to be allowed by special use permit in the mixed use zone, commercial neighborhood, commercial downtown, commercial highway, industrial 1, 2, and 3 zoning districts. All scales are proposed to be allowed by right in the government and institutional zoning district. Small and medium scale solar energy systems are proposed by special use permit in the R200 and R80 residential zoning districts, and then the small scale, which is that 1750 or less, by special use permit in the R40 zoning district. So the principal solar energy systems in residential zones are further limited by parcel size and then also lot coverage. So in these zones, the small-scale solar energy systems can only be located on parcels of 5 acres or more. Medium-scale solar energy systems would be located on parcels of 10 acres or more. The board was concerned with, if you're going to allow it in a residential zone, not letting it be the overwhelming use on a property. Both small and medium-scale solar energy systems in those residential zones would be required to occupy no more than 10% of the property. In the industrial 1, 2, and 3 zones, it is proposed that energy systems occupy no more than 50% of the property, and then in the mixed-use commercial neighborhood, downtown, and highway, and the GI zones, it would be limited to 30%. And those are really based on the uses that are currently allowed in those zones and keeping the character of what's there. So the ordinance sets out different review procedures based on the size and type of array. So accessory solar arrays that are between 0 and 1,750 square feet would only require a building permit, no additional review necessary. 1,750 to 40,000 square feet would require a development plan review. That's typically performed by the town's technical review committee, which is staff and 1 planning board member, and then whatever the TRC decides is then confirmed by the planning board. So it's not a public hearing process, and it's not very lengthy. Systems that are equal to or greater than 40,000 square feet would require that development plan review, but would have that additional public hearing before the planning board. The board felt that having a system of that size really should require notice to abutters and a voice for the abutters. Principal solar energy systems are, the procedure is dependent on what's happening on the site. And it's very similar to what we do now in town for commercial development. So right now, for any commercial development that exceeds 5 parking spaces, which is not completely relevant for solar, which is why we sort of shifted a little bit, is required to have development plan review. Any commercial use that is developed in conjunction with another one is required to go through major land development project review. And so that's what we did with principal solar. Principal solar, if it's the only use on a property, development plan review. If it's mixed together with another use, would be major land development project review. There is quite a number of additional application requirements that the board felt would be necessary for these types of applications. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can see them on the screen. You have them in your memo. Some highlights would be, an energy usage statement. If there's uses on site already, then the applicant would have to, say what those uses are using for energy. If they're not, then they would give a proposal for what the uses would be. There has to be an operations and maintenance plan, and there would have to be a public safety preparedness and response plan. Both of those plans, the operations and maintenance plan, would be approved by the Director of Public Services prior to approval, and then the public safety and preparedness plan would be approved by both the police and fire chiefs and the EMS director prior to approval. When the board determines it necessary, the board may require adjustments to the location of the system, and that would really be based on mitigating negative impacts to adjacent properties or to reduce the amount of clearing that's necessary to site the project. They also have the ability to require additional landscaping but beyond the minimum, and that would be when it's determined necessary to mitigate negative impacts to adjacent properties or prominent community view sheds or due to the unique characteristics of the property. Approvals, any approval that would happen for a solar energy system through development plan review or as a land development project would be required to be conditioned on 2 things. First is a posting of a financial guarantee for decommissioning and removal. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then the second is the provision of a public safety training with police, fire, and EMS personnel, and that would have to occur within 1 month of installation of the system. So again, there's a lot of requirements. This slide goes through some of the requirements that are necessary for all systems. Things like on flat roofs, they must be set back from the edge. Pitched roofs have to be parallel to the roof line. Can't be greater than 12 feet above grade. Sited to minimize negative aesthetic impacts. Those sorts of things. There are some additional requirements for ground-mounted systems that are sited on prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance. They have to reseed after installation. They have to store any excavated materials for reclamation of that prime farmland soil. They have to control, eliminate invasive species. They have to site the system with the contours of the land so that they're not grading and taking away fill unnecessarily. They would have to only use pile-driven or ballast block footings, which is for the same purpose, and then only use native plants so that they're not introducing invasive species. A couple of extra requirements for accessory solar arrays. They have to demonstrate that they're sized to be an accessory array, so no more than 120% of the energy necessary for the parcel. And then roof-mounted arrays must not increase the footprint of the structure. In residential zones, accessory arrays will require twice the typical accessory setback for the zoning district. Additional requirements for principal solar energy systems. Again, those are those bigger systems. Ground-mounted systems must be set back a minimum of 50 feet from residential zones or uses, 100 feet from public roads, public and private roads. They need a perimeter fence to secure the area. Have to have a means of shutting down the system. Pretty standard stuff for solar, I think. So all energy systems must be decommissioned and removed at the end of their useful life. So at the time of application, the applicant has to give an estimate of what that useful life is, how many years. They also have to provide a cost estimate for what it would cost to decommission and remove that system. And then it would be required as a part of their condition of approval that 2 years before the anticipated end of life, that's when they would post that surety, the financial guarantee for decommissioning. So if it's a 30-year system, they wouldn't have to post it up front and then wait 30 years. It would really be based on whatever that expected end of life is. And then the release of the guarantee would occur only after the system is fully removed. So the ordinance also vests a couple of different kinds of systems, which means that vesting means that they would not be required to go through the process or adhere to the standards that are found in the proposed ordinance. First, it's accessory solar arrays for which a building permit has already been applied. So if you've already applied, then you don't have to then meet all of these standards. And if the other three are the landfill sites, Rose Hill, landfill, West Kingston Town Dump, and URI disposal. Those 3 sites will be required to have review by the Technical Review Committee as an advisory review to the building permit, which is what is required in the current ordinance. So we kept that. But they will not be required to go through the full spectrum of review. So if the council is of a view to adopt the proposed ordinance, the board would recommend that you incorporate the planning board's recommended findings of fact, consistency with the comprehensive plan, and consistency with the purposes of zoning, as listed in the planning board's letter dated May 10th, 2017. Happy to take any questions.
I have a question. So what you were referencing for decommissioning the solar panels, if someone were to sell their property, would they be responsible for then removing it before they sold it, or would the responsibility transfer to the new owner?
It would transfer to the new owner. The approval will go with the property.
Okay. And then I just for clarification, you said when they submit their application, they have to offer an estimate of how much it would cost to decommission it, but if the life of the product is 30 years, in 30 years the price could be very different. So would they have to give a more accurate representation at the end of that life cycle to post that surety, or?
It is not, that is not included in the draft ordinance. I think when the planning board determines what that posted financial guarantee amount should be, they have the liberty to increase it for inflation and things like that, but it's not in the ordinance.
We have some experience with the towers, the cell towers, and posting bonds for their removal too.
Okay. And it does seem, I know we asked for the board to go back and give a more thorough look at this ordinance. And just looking at all the recommendation or all the standards that applicants have to meet, do you feel it would be a deterrent for people to apply for this, or do you think that this is just due diligence and in line with what other communities are doing?
I think it's due diligence and in line with what other communities are doing with solar ordinances. I think the board, when they were going through the standards, was cognizant of not putting too much of a burden on an applicant, but also balancing the needs of the community. So, the standards don't necessarily ask for anything that is over and above what, any other development application would be required to do, but in a way that addresses solar, because it is a unique type of development. And I think if, applicants for other types of commercial use are put through this standard, then the board felt that solar should meet it as well.
Thank you.
When it comes to decommissioning, I have a question. So what if there was legislation introduced at some point that made it cost prohibitive to have solar arrays? Or what if someone decided to walk away because it was no longer feasibly, economically a good deal for them? My only concern would be waiting 2 years before the planned decommissioning.
Yeah.
Because what if they decided to walk away prior to that?
So at any time, the town of South Kingstown the ordinance is written so the town of South Kingstown can authorize both the property owner or the town itself to remove the facility and seek damages. So if it becomes that a facility is abandoned, it's not being maintained, if there's a problem at the site that's not being taken care of, the town can remove that site and then put a lien on the property or seek damages in some other way.
And just to add to that, a couple other things. Normally, it's a bond that's required, so it's some independent financial institution. And if for some reason the bond would elapse or all this time goes by, the absolute worst case is that the town can go in, as Chelsea mentioned, remove it, and then put a lien on the land. I mean, the land has value, so we would eventually collect when the property is remortgaged, sold, et cetera.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Thanks to the planning board for all the work that went into this. It's very thorough. I'm curious to hear what the public has to say.
I'd like to entertain anybody from the audience who would like to come up. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, good evening. My name is Vito from Northeast Solar and Wind Power. I'm the applicant that goes way back over a year ago when I applied. I support this ordinance. I don't think it's too cumbersome. I have a lot of solar systems going in on Rhode Island farms all over the state. All the towns are approving them. My only concern is that there isn't any bad soils in South Kingston. I'm going on 3 farms. I'm not taking any food out of production. One farm, I'm going over cow corn. And the other 2 farms, I'm going over grass. And there's very little tree clearing, so we're not clear cutting. It's open space, and we're just tying into the grid. We're very used to these regulations in terms of establishing a sinking fund from day one to put money aside for removal of these systems after 20 years, so that's nothing new to us. But like I said earlier, my concern is that we are going on good soil, we are going on farmland, but like I said earlier, there is no bad soil in this town. So it's like, we have to go on soil. We can't hang them from the trees, okay? So these 1-acre solar systems will make farming viable in Rhode Island, and it's only getting larger and larger. The Farm Bureau supports it. The State House supports it. The Conservation Commission supports it. I can't think of any organization that doesn't support it. And once again, it's meant to help farmers. So I don't see any problem with this ordinance. unless you guys have some questions, I'm urging you to vote for it, including the town manager.
He doesn't get a vote.
Oh, he doesn't get a vote? Okay, well, it's good for Rhode Island. It's good for your farms. It'll make it'll make the Cottrell farm viable. There's only maybe a handful of dairy farms left in Rhode Island. The Cottrells need this to survive, and the other 2 farms need it too. So it's what we asked for. Please vote for it. Any questions?
Thank you. Does anybody else in the audience wish to come up to speak? Nope, go ahead.
Oh, boy. I didn't know this was on. I don't know what's on the agenda. I have my own agenda tonight, though, but I'll wait for that. I don't know. I listened to the presentation. I liked your question.
Bob, we all know who you are, but for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bob Traeger, fisherman. I don't know what I am anymore. I'm 77 and I'm tired. Anyway, I liked your question, but I don't think I didn't get the answer I wanted to hear. I think it's the important question. And I tried to read through this, but I'm not a mental genius, and it's a lot of words and a lot of stuff that people can sit down in board meetings and come up with. Look at our government right now. We won't get into that. Anyway, the first thing I thought of is this, whatever that big plan is that's in here, is it meant to encourage people to use solar energy? And I listened, and I've thought about it, and if I had the money, I'd put it on my house tomorrow. But I wouldn't have the money. Now, I realize the industrial, this gentleman that got up, I don't question, but you're talking about big solar systems, fairly good sized ones for running a farm, dairy farm, or whatever. But I'm thinking, a lot of it is people would just like to get involved in trying to help our environment, and I don't like it. I generally, the feeling I have now is negative, only because when I hear things, and I've been through it with the state and applying for things, and well, you've got to get an engineer's plan with that. Well, you're going to do that. Well, you got to get okay. Here's what that means: $3,000 here, $5,000 there. And then if it doesn't go right, lawyers. Now you got to get a lawyer involved if you can afford to get a lawyer involved, and most people in my category cannot. They cannot.
Maybe I can help allay some of your concerns. I think there's a difference. You saw there were 3 categories: small,
right,
medium, large. The large arrays are the ones where you have to jump through all those hoops that...
Yeah, I can understand more regulations involved in that. Right.
Like accessory, small scale that a person like you might put on your roof. All you need is a building permit, essentially.
Okay, well, I'll be out here in 1 second, because that's basically the next thing that I said, the next thing that came to my mind is, I believe that the primary responsibility for anybody that wants to use solar energy should be on the installers and the manufacturers of the items. They should have all this stuff under control before it even goes on the market. They should know what all you people need to know as overseers of a town. And that's what I'd like to see. Whenever the town gets involved in coming up with a lot of rules and regulations about what people can do on their property, it gets ugly, as far as I'm concerned, because I've seen it over the years, getting ugly for some people. Now, here again, what are we all about in the country? You listen to it every day now. You know, we're supposed to be about taking care of the guy that needs some backing because he doesn't have much. Remember that. I think this, I appreciate what you say. I understand what you say. I'm not I'm not a moron. But at the same time, I'm not a moron. I do understand what's behind some of this stuff. And what's behind things in a closed community is like, well, you can't hang your clothes on a clothesline, it gets to those nitty-gritty, unbelievable things, and I think your responsibility as a council member, which I respect highly, is to be very sensitive to those types of things. And I think your question was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else who would like to come up to the podium? Please do, and state your name.
Eileen Sadashev, and I live in Kingston. I just want to congratulate the council. I have just had solar panels installed within a year, and I'm absolutely delighted. I get electric bills for like $8.47. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Good evening. Bill Boardman, Woodmark Way, Board of Director of Teft Hill Association, 219 homes. And I have here some of my neighbors and committee member we have a solar committee member here for us tonight. And so I had a quick question. I believe Teft Hill is an R40 zone. And I was wondering I read some of the setbacks that are stipulated. And most of our properties are half-acre lots, but there are 1 or 2 acre lots that would meet would have enough room perhaps to have a ground-mounted system. And so I was wondering, in looking at some of the requirements of zoning, you have to have double setbacks. And then in 510.4, paragraph alpha, it talks about minimum 50 feet setbacks, 100-foot setbacks. So I was wondering if I might have some clarification for maybe a typical homeowner, maybe a half-acre or acre property, and what, if anything, is allowed or required. Thank you.
So the setback requirements are for ground-mounted systems. So you would be able to have a roof-mounted system on any property, wherever it's located, wherever your house is. For the ground-mounted systems, it's twice the accessory setback, which is always less than the principal. I don't know what the accessory setback is off the top of my head for an R40.
It's close to relevant. It's the R10 zone.
It's R10 zoning for you. And do you know what the accessory setback is, Jeff, off R10? I don't.
6 from the rear, 6 from the side.
So it'll be 12 feet off your property line. And then for the R...
6 from the rear, 6 from the side.
6 from the rear, 6 from the side. So this one for ground mounted will be twice that, so 12 feet. And then, depending on the property size, it could only be for an R40 ground mounted in a 5-acre parcel. So probably would not. You probably don't have any of those in Teft Hill, but definitely roof mounted would be allowed up to that 120% size. And then that is really, I mean, if we're talking about building permits, it's really a system that would be like 10 feet by 175 feet in size. So you can imagine that's a pretty sizable system, which would only require a building permit, and then you'd only go up from there. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So if I got this clear, then for a ground-mounted, you would need, within an R40 zone, at least 5 acres to put it ground-mounted. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Do we have anyone else from the audience who would like to come up and speak? Any more questions here from the table?
One question did occur to me, and Chelsea, maybe you can help. I'm just thinking, 20 years goes by, Vito's got a system on a farm around here, but they don't want to just decommission it. Is there any provision to make the replacement of a system just sort of sail through, or do you have to go through a whole...
Although that is not in the ordinance, I think you would just reapply. But I think that would be the out at this point, since it's not listed in the ordinance if you wanted to reapply to upgrade the system to last another 20 years. That upgrades to systems are covered in the ordinance, that you would be required to go through development plan review, and they're allowed. So I think, just off the top of my head, that's what would happen. Would be, because the technology you would assume would change, and that would be considered a major upgrade.
I can speak for National Grid. Right now, I have 3 certificate of tariffs for National Grid that are 20 years in length. And a certificate of tariff means that National Grid agrees to buy the power produced from these solar systems for 20 years. After 20 years, the investor can renegotiate with National Grid based on whatever state policy is in place at that particular point in time. Or they can be removed. Or they can be converted to a net metering system. But even the panels decay at about 0.5% a year. At the end of 20 years, you're about 80% output. It's still an ungodly amount of power. I mean, it's more than a few homes. Okay, so most likely after 20 years, some of these systems, the investors will renegotiate with National Grid for to keep producing power, or they'll be removed based on the sinking fund that's been established. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
Any additional questions, comments? Anything here at the table?
Meg, I just want to make clear, Chelsea referenced the planning board decision of May 10th. I just want to make clear that is, in fact, part of your record this evening.
Okay, thank you.
I make a motion that we close public hearing 7C.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion on item 7C?
Motion to approve item 7C as presented, making note of the letter of recommendation from the planning board.
Right. What we want to do is have you, as part of that motion, actually incorporate and adopt as your own the recommendations from the planning board in their letter of May 10th regarding the findings of fact and consistency with the comprehensive community plan, as well as the findings of fact and consistency with the purposes of zoning. All is set out in that correspondence.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 8A, a communication from Jordan Hevenor, Mara Trachtenberg, Sarah Markey, and Jocelyn Foy requesting adoption of a resolution in support of the Reproductive Health Care Act, House Bill H5343, Senate Bill S0274. It's received and placed on file, and the council further directs.
I think there's a few people here to speak to this communication.
Thank you. I'm Jordan Hevenor, and this is Sarah Markey and Mara Trachtenberg. For hearing this resolution regarding the Reproductive Health Care Act, this legislation is about codifying the existing federal court decisions that allow for access to safe and legal abortion services in Rhode Island. Our current president has vowed to overturn Roe v. Wade, and if that happens, the women of Rhode Island will no longer have access, and doctors will go to jail. The Women Project has been active in South Kingstown, and much to our surprise, nearly 300 people showed up at a march on March 8th to walk from Hera Gallery to the UU and have dinner, just basically for this issue. There is a broad base of support in South Kingstown, and despite that support, our message does not seem to be making it to the State House. Hence, we are presenting this resolution as another method to demonstrate the strong support for this legislation. Thank you for your time, and please let me know if you have questions.
What has the response been at the State House, I suppose?
Hi, So we're very lucky here in South Kingstown. Our state representatives and our state senator are supportive of the Reproductive Health Care Act. And in fact, some of them are sponsors of the act. The issue has been that we haven't been able to get a vote on the floor of the House or the Senate, and so this kind of grassroots support, a resolution from our town council, which frankly reflects how so many voters feel about reproductive rights, would do a lot to get us there to help put pressure on legislators, our elected officials in Providence, to get a vote.
Some of the work you guys have done through the Woman Project, I think you sold yourself a little short. It's been really amazing. And I think that regardless of what the issues are, to see a community come together and engage over these issues, it's phenomenal. And it's really impressive. So thank you for the work that you've done. And I know personally I've been to some of their events and worked with some of these people, and they're just wonderful women and men in this group that frankly we're lucky to have. So thank you.
Discussion?
I think if I'm in support of the resolution, whatever we can do to help. I know we don't make a huge difference, but maybe it could change someone's mind up at the State House, even if it's one person.
May I just jump in? If we start, maybe other towns will start, and maybe that will put more pressure. We can be leaders here, which would be wonderful for South Kingstown.
Have other communities not? So is this new?
Approached any other communities, because this is the community that we live in and where we do most of our work from. So
several town committees have endorsed it, correct?
Yes, North Kingstown. Oh, I'm sorry.
Town Democratic committees, I think, is the key where they've been before.
Good. Well, I will make a motion that we approve item 8A.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I will abstain.
I will also abstain.
So passes.
Carries. With 3 approvals, 2 abstentions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Moving on to item 8B, a communication dated June 6th from Councilwoman Gledhill requesting the town to sign We Are Still In, an online letter of support for the Paris Agreement, international commitment to climate change that President Trump recently announced in our country's withdrawal from is received, placed on file, and the town further directs.
So I just sent this in. I had a few inquiries from community members about what effect leaving the Paris Agreement would have at a local level. I think that in South Kingstown, we're especially fortunate to already be doing so many environmentally conscious initiatives. I don't know that it's essential that we need to recommit, but I think just to sort of let people know that we're not going to change what we're doing based on what the national policies are. I found this online. It was actually passed along to me by a staff member of Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. I asked him what he thought municipalities should do to reinforce their commitment to these causes, and he suggested this. So,
I want to thank Councilwoman Gledhill for bringing this forward and looking into it. I think it's something I certainly support. You know, I've worked with a number of the people who are actually negotiating in Paris, and frankly, a number of them were somewhat disappointed that the Paris Agreement wasn't stronger. But I think in some ways, putting forward a resolution is in keeping with the Paris Agreement, which was a voluntary accord. I think a lot of the targets that are set out in Paris actually need to be strengthened, and I think the rest of the world will probably take that step now that the U.S. isn't holding it back. I think South Kingstown has certainly been doing its piece for sustainability, and passing the solar ordinance only will allow that to happen faster here locally. I also think it's great that the governor just today did the very same thing. She signed the state onto this, and signed some executive order, I believe, just today, denoting the same thing. So I think it's something that we can certainly do.
I agree that as a town, we're doing a great job, and we're doing a lot of this stuff already in the Paris Agreement, out of the Paris Agreement, and we certainly won't have any impact on that. But I'm proud to say that we are doing a lot of what needs to be done already.
I will make a motion.
We have someone who would like to speak. Would you like to speak?
I have never heard you speak for just a second.
I'm glad to hear you had some dialogue about this, because this is serious business. And it's an agreement that it isn't even obligatory. It's ridiculous what our president has done in this case. I don't like to criticize our own president, but it's hard not to. Anyway, I think this is something we should all be thinking about, and anything we can do to change that direction of thinking that's been thrown out there to the world, making us look like fools, we should do.
Bob, I was going to be for it, but you're going to make me abstain again.
Hi, Ellen Lieberman on Robinson Street. I just want to say the town is doing a lot, but I would love to see the town raise its recycling rate. That's something we can do right here. Thank you.
I'm in full support of this, as well as Abel and Liz. I think the one thing that we always have to keep in mind, we're a coastal community, and climate change is going to affect us first. So whatever we can do to show support that we're still on board as a town, I think is very important in this case.
I make a motion we approve item 8B.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 8C, a communication dated June 1st from Laura and John Krikorian, and a letter dated June 6th from the Exeter Town Council requesting the adoption of a resolution in opposition to House Bill H. 6172, the Right to Farm Act, that would allow municipalities to limit and regulate secondary agricultural uses, but not to prohibit such operations. It's received and it is currently placed on file to the council until the council further directs. Discussion.
We talked about this at some length in the work session. I think I'm in support of sending a letter to the governor, or resolution, I guess it's a letter that's referenced here, to the governor, asking for her opposition against this House Bill 6172. I think the Rhode Island Farm Bureau is opposed to this act, which tells you that since this is for farm use, that it needs some work before it could be passed.
I absolutely agree with that, and I do think it's within each municipality to have certain controls or parameters in which the usage of land is allowed, and I don't think it should be a state's decision to decide how we as a town, particularly here in South Kingstown, have our farmland utilized. So I think it should be, I'm in opposition to this as well.
I agree with the comments of the last two counselors, and am also in opposition to this legislation that would take control away from the local municipality.
I agree. Just to echo everyone's sentiments, and especially what Abel said, the Farm Bureau being in opposition to this is pretty much all you need to know about whether or not it's good for the farmers in Rhode Island.
I guess we're in unanimous opposition.
And if, Steve, could you just speak to the issue, I think John and Laura are concerned because of personal experience here, but we already have the authority to regulate, and even if this bill did pass.
I think it's important for everybody to recognize that South Kingstown zoning ordinance currently allows accessory events on farms by right, subject to development plan review. And the development plan review isn't to look at the appropriateness of the use, but rather the regulation of that use. So the way the ordinance is set up now, we do have regulatory authority, but it is a use by right. What this legislative act would do is to strip us of the authority and would in fact say that the only regulatory authority we would have would be that if the police chief were to find a public safety or a fire chief a public safety issue that warranted some type of regulation. It's bad legislation. It certainly usurps the duties and responsibilities of the planning board in terms of planning for the community and the zoning of the community. There is language that's been floated about on a sub-A, and even with the sub-A, the language is not adequate, and the entire act should be defeated.
I do see that the Krikorians are here. I didn't know if you wanted to speak on behalf of your communication. Just please state your name for the record.
My name is Laura Krikorian. I live in Wakefield. I have a small business here. I'm an architect, and I work with the zoning and planning officials all day long, and I use the zoning ordinance quite frequently. And I really like that each one of them in each town is tailored to each town specifically, and that each town has the right to manage their land use. So to oppose this, I appreciate your time looking into it, and I think it would really be beneficial to the town to oppose it. I also just wanted to add that Jamestown Town Council opposed this, as well as Exeter. That letter came in after I sent my letter. So other towns are opposing this bill.
Hi, I'm John Krikorian. I'm a local realtor in the area, and I 100% support my wife. You know, we've had a lot of discussions about this, and we just want our town's support any way we can get it. So that's what we're looking for, just support, and it just seems like common sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Traeger.
Oppose it.
I think we have a consensus, although we have not voted yet. Any further discussion on the topic? May I please have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we send a similar letter to Governor Raimondo, including sending copies to some of these other decision makers, Senate President certainly, seeing as the bill will have to go through the Senate next.
Second.
A motion for the opposition, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we do have a second. Can I please have a vote? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any oppositions? Motion carries. Moving on to a communication from Terrence Simpson, President of the Board of Directors for the Contemporary Theater Company, requesting adoption of a resolution in support of proposed legislation that would amend the Rhode Island General Law 44-3-3 to allow the theater to receive a tax exemption on its property located at 321 Main Street. It's received and placed on file, and we will further direct Mr. Simpson.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am the president of the Board of Directors of the Contemporary Theater. We have spoken with our delegates to the General Assembly about tax exemption. As you know, the tax exemption is a legislative act of our General Assembly. They tell me that if you support the bill, that the bill will pass, and that if you don't support the bill won't pass. So I'm asking that you support the bill for the property tax exemption. It's the property at 321 Main Street. I heard Mr. Alfred speak saying that we didn't ask for exemption at 327. We don't own 327. It is likely that we will be continuing to rent that for the time being. We won't be purchasing it, and so we will be paying property tax on that building. The building in the back and the patio where we have outdoor performances. In the building we have rehearsals, we have classes, we have small venue performances, and it would help us greatly. Ocean State recently closed. You know, organizations like us have difficulty. It's hard to bring a good theater and charge the price that you need to charge in order for it to be a going concern. And so we're here looking for your support on this property tax exemption. The bill the resolution that I gave to you has one error. I referred to it as subsection 49 of the state law 44-3-3, because since I was working on this, there are 11 other organizations that got the exemption successfully, the last one being the Arctic Playhouse in West Warwick. So the subparagraph is wrong, but the wording is what matters. And if you were to pass that resolution, we would hopefully get it to the General Assembly within the week, and then they will be able to pass the legislation. I've been in touch with Rep. Tanzi and Senator Sosnowski, and they say with your support that they will be able to pass the legislation successfully.
As a board member of the Contemporary Theater Company, I will be recusing.
I think you guys do great things. I know you've come before us before for different things, and we always have great things to say about you. I know you just had your Ocean State Improv Festival this last week, and it looks like it was a huge success. So.
It was a huge success. Day and night, Wednesday through Sunday, the place was packed, and there were people doing a lot of good improv.
Great. I'm happy to support this. So,
any other comments?
I think it's great what the CTC adds to the community. Certainly we talk about payment in lieu of taxes sometimes for some of our nonprofits in town. It's just something you repay to the community in terms of civic engagement, hosting events for candidates like us from time to time, or putting plays on that anybody can access. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Harry, do you have a bill number yet?
I don't have a bill number. I'm told what happens is this proposal.
The Ledge Council is going to draft the language that
They will.
is necessary. You know, as you said, whether it's paragraph 49 or 51 is really up to Ledge Council based on what's before them. But if we can get legislators to request legislation to be drafted, then we can give you a letter specific to that legislation. And I would assume that you're going to have it run, since this is so late in the session, make sure that it runs from both houses.
Yes, we're working with both houses, and again, they tell me that in the few weeks that are left, that there is time to get this passed for this year.
We can get the letter out. It's just helpful for us if we have a bill number to be able to provide the endorsement for.
I will speak to them tomorrow to see if I can get that number.
Make a motion that we approve item 8D and send a letter of support for their tax exemption.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions?
I just do want to have one more clarification. The legislation, if adopted by the General Assembly this year, will put the theater in a position to request the tax exemption in December of this year for the tax bill that goes out for the 18-19 year. That which is in the roll today is certified. They will be getting their tax bill for this year. There's nothing we can do about that at this point.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We voted.
We voted already.
One recusal.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we come to item number 9, comments from interested citizens. Is there anybody who wishes to come up and speak? Please so. If you do, identify yourself. Come on up.
I'm not good with notes. So, I don't know, try to use them. But I had an interesting experience on Sunday. I don't know, were you driving around on Sunday, Mr. Cruz, by any chance? On Succotash Road, maybe? No? Okay, well, you didn't experience it then. I started off, I was going to go through my day, Sunday, how it started. I do it quick, I guess. Nobody cares. But the thing I got here is who cares? And the general the general, in my mind, that is the question. You know, it's to be or not to be is the question, and who cares is just as big a question. And on last year, I came before you, and the chief, is the chief here? No, he's not here. Well, I wanted to compliment the chief, because when I drove home from Nitigret after I played 2 hours of tennis, before that I went had a breakfast at town at 6:30. My day was going well. I was playing pretty good. I got to Succotash Road at 11:20. And I saw all these police cars down at right at the beginning of the road. I said, holy mackerel, what's going on? Because I'm a little slow, you know. But then I realized when I got up the road a little further, right by the tennis courts and the playground there, and the ball field, traffic had stopped. And again, the state of Rhode Island, with no planning and no foresight and no caring about anybody, but I don't know what they care about. I guess that traffic was stopped, and it took me, I live right around the corner from where you go down to the beach, from Succotash Road. It took me 15 minutes to get to my driveway, and I had to go out in the other lane and beckon to somebody next to me, you had to break the law, in other words, okay, would you just mind just waiting for a minute? I got to go in that driveway. And that person was very nice, and they did. So I get in there, and I watched the rest of the U.S. Open. The Doll just took it, you know. And then I took a shower. And this is another hour almost. I looked out. The line is still in front of my driveway. Well, it doesn't mean anything to any of you maybe, but I own a business in Jerusalem. And it's a fragile 10-week, every day counts business. And this happened last year, and it happened again today, my wife told me, because I was fishing all morning. I decided not to drive down to my dock because it would have taken me forever. So I walked, which is good for me, and I'm glad I did. I need to do more of that. But in the walk, I was kind of just noticing what these people were kind of experiencing. They didn't know what was going on. They don't know how far it is to the beach entrance. They don't really know. A lot of them don't know. And as I got down by Captain Jack's, one of the cars swung out and turned around, decided that's enough of that for me, right? Well, that person that turned around is one of our best customers and a wonderful person. That I think if I mentioned his name, you'd all know who he was. He's a person that does for others. And I just stopped him for a second. I talked to him for a second. Yeah, I was going to come down and have lunch, Bob, but I can't do it. Well, last year, we had a number of people tell us we can't come down on the Sundays and Saturday mornings because I want them to just go back. Do you mind me doing this? Because I gotta get it off my chest, and I can. If I could read your mind, you could say, "Gee, Bob, what can we do?" Well, you're the only people. You're my people. You're the ones. You're the people that I think of when I have a problem with this kind of a problem. And I want you to know that the police. Mr. Vespi, he must have been sensitive to this going to happen, right? Because there were 2 police cars, not counting the one at the Oyster Bar that has to be there just to control sanity, but 2 police cars. And I'm walking down, and these police cars are trying to get the people to move over to keep the road clear, okay? And they have loudspeakers in their car. And they're saying to the people, move over. And then they're saying, I didn't call the chief, I didn't call the state troopers, I didn't call anybody, because I already went through that last year. And I know that this is, I'm not saying this about our police department, but generally the people that run the parking lot down there, whoever these people are, do not care about anything. They don't think. They have no organizational skills, and they're not solving this problem that occurs every year. But now it occurs more than that. This is when they sell the tickets to the public. Can you imagine a line? It's over a mile from my house, and it went around the corner. And that was going on way before that. Well, anyway, I get down there. I'll try to shorten the thing. I just want you to get a sense of it. Well, I went down, I walked in and talked to one of the attendants, and I said, how many cars more can you fit in? Oh, we got one more row here, and then we move them around there. So they had room probably to take care of the rest of the cars that wanted to come in at that moment. But I wasn't trying to do anything, I just was wondering about it. And then I asked one of the young ladies behind the wheel there, she was 2 cars. I asked her, just how long did this take for you to get to this point? An hour and a half. And she said, if I'd have known, I wouldn't have done it. And I think a lot of people didn't know. But I'm going to get back to the police, because the police were trying to do it. But the facts are they couldn't do it. They cannot do it, because some people are stubborn, some people are deaf, and some people are stupid. And when people go to the beach, it isn't even because of all those things. They have tunnel vision. There's only one thing they're thinking about: getting the pass and getting down that beach, which is great. And I believe beach should be free to everybody in Rhode Island. I don't believe in beach charges at all. I'm glad they lowered them this year. I don't even know what they lowered them to. But I think they should be 0. The people that need that to come down here and get a relief from the city or from 90-degree temperatures shouldn't have to worry about paying $10 and $20 to park their car. I don't believe it, but I'll never get that. I realize that. They tried that in Narragansett for years trying to get that straightened out. They never will. People love money. But the police did this, and they said in the speakers, I get sidetracked, I'm sorry. They said on their loudspeakers, and I want you to know that the lane is open. There are 2 lanes open. They weren't open. A few cars pulled over, but most of them didn't. They just stayed right in the middle of the road. If we have a hot summer, this is going to take place every single Saturday and Sunday, not to the degree that it took place because of the selling of the tickets, but it's going to happen. And last year, what the chief was able to get done by the state of Rhode Island, they put that big sign up, way down, past Captain Jack's, keep to the right and don't block the road. Well, as far as I'm concerned, if this is going to go on, the state needs to, right on the road, all the way down there, do not block this road. It's a state road. It's 2 lanes, and the only way it should be blocked is if there's an accident and somebody's life's in danger. They're putting people's lives in danger by what they're doing right now. It's really true. I'm not throwing it out. I hate that use of, safety. Well, I mean, this is true. It's not only safety for ambulances to be able to get down there and all the rest of it, but it's safety from people having road rage nowadays, I'll tell you. Because last year, and I would do it this year again, but I decided to walk down. I will just go down that side of the road. And then when I did it last year, what happened to me is somebody started coming the other way, so I moved over a little. The guy that was over there went berserk. And I says, don't worry, I'm not trying to cut in on you. I'm just trying to get to my business. Okay. Did I get it? Have I got the point across? I could go on because I don't go on. I didn't even want to do this in a way, but I don't know where to go.
No, you definitely did get your point across, and we appreciate it, but for a matter of timing, if you want to just...
Because somebody has to communicate to the, what is it, DEM? The Environmental Management, right? That this is something they need to deal with. And several people have told me, yes, the other day, some ways to deal with it. And I mentioned a couple of them. Now, granted, maybe they're not the best ways, but I don't care. There has to be a way to deal with it. They have to come up with an answer to this question. And they haven't done it, and I don't trust any of them. I don't trust any of them. So here's the story. It's a state road. I'm telling you guys. It's a state road, 2 lanes, and those lanes are supposed to be accessible. And last year, what the chief did when it settled down a little bit, I guess he told the people that are running the pavilion and whoever that person is over there, that, okay, when the line gets to that point where that sign is, and they have to go out in the road, you got to just move them along, and they go around, or they can either come down and come around, or turn around on the rotary there, and because they can't block the road. But nobody came up with anything. And I give the police a tremendous amount of credit, and I wish the chief was here. I'll call him up and tell him. I want him to know that I know they tried. I want to know they tried their best. 2 cars, 2 police cars, not counting Captain Jack's flashing lights, But they couldn't get these people to just, if they did move over and allow, because then the other person that's coming the other way got a little extra room. There's a little room on the side of the road. You could get away with it. You could get away with it. But no, we're not going to get away with it. It's not going to happen. And what it's doing is negatively affecting, this is where I hate to do this when I come to these meetings. I don't like to bring up things that are for me. I like the general ideas about things. Well, the general idea here is the law is being broken by the state of Rhode Island by allowing that road to be blocked for over 2 hours, at least over 2 hours. At least, maybe more than that. And I'd like one of those little letters you send out, if you can figure out how to say it. Oh, give me a name, I'll call him or her. But I wanted you to know what's going on there, because even though my business is in Narragansett, you police the area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. I got that off my chest. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from...
Let me just make a couple of comments.
Sure.
Police department was there all weekend long. This has started each and every year the same way. The largest problem is that at this time of the year, they're selling the beach passes. To sell the beach pass to determine if they're from Rhode Island or whether they're out of state requires them to show documentation on registrations. So what's happening is it's taking far longer for people to be able to get through the gateway to get into the parking lot. I think the solution that the state needs to consider would be to allow all vehicles into the parking lot and to charge the vehicles as they leave. Because people are not leaving they will be leaving at various times. There won't be a stacking. There's wetlands on that roadside where we can't expand the lane to be able to get away from the two-way traffic. So if they can't change the guardhouse and bring it down another 300 or 400 feet into the parking lot, similar to what they have at Musquamaket, then what they need to do is to consider blowing up the existing system and reversing it. I think that the traffic could get into that parking lot, and then what they could do is, as they exit, they would be able to charge, and there would not be the demand on that gateway. Now, we've made that suggestion with the state, and it's fallen on deaf ears. The state was under the impression that by putting a sign at Route 1 and Succotash simply saying lot full, that it would deter people from going down the road. That's just not going to happen. It hasn't happened in the last 20 years. It's not going to happen in the next 20 years. And it is a public safety problem for us because we have to provide for public access into Jerusalem. And what we're finding is more people that are going into the northbound lane to try to bypass the bottleneck. So it's a problem that it is perennial. It usually lessens as the summer goes on, other than the major hot days. But it's a problem all summer long, and particularly on the weekends. But I think that there is a solution if we could get the state to take a look at that, because they are limited based on the space that's on Succotash Road to be able to provide stacking. If you can't provide the stacking, then have it as a free access.
Thank you. Can I just say one other thing? Because you seem like you got it under control. That's exactly, that was brought up last year, and they don't listen to it. But the other thing, the reason it is going to happen on a regular basis is they will not open that gate until 9 o'clock or 8:30. I think they pushed it to 8:30 finally, because they say there's no lifeguards on duty. Now, I don't, can't you say you can't go in the water until 9 o'clock? I mean, that's a safety thing that's crazy as far as I'm concerned. But
Bob,
that's one of the things.
If they're charging people to come in, they have to have guards available.
Well, then get them there early. God, I go fishing 6 o'clock every morning.
Any more comments from any citizens that wish to speak? I have a couple, and I'll make them very, very brief. First of all, I do see Terry here. I want to thank you, Steve, and every other town member who was involved with the opening of the rec center. What a smooth transition. The ribbon cutting was lovely. The presentations were spot on. Everybody did a fantastic job, so thank you to everybody that was involved in that. Really a good job. The second thing I want to say, Liz is going to be representing the council at the South Kingstown High School graduation up at URI this Friday night. While I do have a little bit of the floor, of course, we all know all of our schools are fantastic and they're academically very proficient, if you will. But I want to talk about the high school for just a second. I've had the opportunity to see the band several times this year. Unbelievable. The arts programs, fantastic. I wanted to talk a little bit about sports right now, and I know I'm leaving somebody out because I don't have everybody's names here. But I do want to congratulate the tennis team for their state championship victory once again under the direction of Andy Carr. That seems to be a very, very consistent state championship, and those kids did a phenomenal job. Also, the volleyball team made their showing, and again, for the state championship. The girls' hockey team, and right now we're cheering on to victory as we sit here. There's a game at McCoy Stadium for the South Kingstown baseball team, who is vying for the state championship, playing it tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday, I believe, up at McCoy against LaSalle. So the sports teams, I know I probably left somebody out. I'm sorry if I have. Please let me know. The sports teams have done phenomenally. The arts programs have done phenomenally. South Kingstown has had a fantastic showing this year. We have a lot to be proud of with our schools. We really do. And that's all I have to say. Anybody else?
I had one quick comment. On Friday, several community members came together to throw an event at Champion Heights, and I know Terry was involved, and Steve, and our two state representatives, Kathy Fogarty and Teresa Tansey. And it was just amazing to see. And Heidi Driscoll from the South Kingstown Partnership for Prevention was also really critical to developing the day and the activities and the things that happened. And one of the things Heidi said to me on Friday was, everywhere I went, I asked, and nobody said no. And I think it just speaks to the kind of community that we live in. We come together and we bring resources to people who need it. And it just made me really proud of our staff and of the people who are involved and our representation, too, at the state, who was able to find some funding to make it happen. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the people involved. And it was definitely a prideful moment for me this weekend.
Thank you.
guess I would just be remiss if we didn't remark on the unveiling of the fountain and the trough over at Peacedale Library. Great event on Saturday. So keep it coming.
Good job had by you all. Everybody's doing great. Steve, we'll move on to item number 10 for your town manager's report.
I did want to report that tax roll certification is June 15th of this year, as usual. We will be certifying the tax roll on the 15th. The tax rate that will be established will be $15.31. That'll be a 22-cent increase over the current rate of $15.09. It works out to be effectively a 1.8% increase over the current year levy. There are some adjustments that we've made to the levy, as I mentioned at the time of budget adoption, that pertain to taking a certain property off the roll, which was eligible for tax exemption or payment of 8% of the rental income at Indian Run. What that means is that the tax dollars that we would have paid are now coming as a revenue payment rather than as a tax payment, so it adjusts the levy. With the next council meeting, you'll have final numbers on that, but the roll certification will occur. The rate will be $15.31. One thing I also want to point out is that this year we are going forward with no changes in the motor vehicle tax roll. We are assuming that there will be legislative action that will occur with a phase out of some type, whether it's that which the governor is proposing, which would be a 30% reduction in the NADA value of the vehicles, or whether it will be the first of a 6-year program that the Speaker of the House is recommending for consideration as a component of that budget. What this will mean is that any legislative action that does occur that modifies the bills that do go out will require us to either issue abatements or to be able to make those abatements credits on the 18-19 tax bills. We're talking about some minimal tax savings that will be realized by the Speaker's proposal would take 100% value down to 95% value. Average vehicle prices are below $10,000. What that would mean in some cases is $10 to an $11 change in the value that people would be entitled to a refund on if they paid the entire bill. It's going to create a good deal of administrative work, but it makes little sense for us to hold off sending tax bills out when in fact we're not sure what the legislative change, if anything, is going to occur. We have advocated that any change that will occur should occur in the 18-19 year to provide adequate time for proper management of the collection system, and certainly the methodology that's going to be employed, particularly if in fact the Speaker's proposal is enacted, will provide minimum value to low tax rate communities such as South Kingstown and provide higher values to people with expensive cars. The real concern I have isn't the first year, it's the 6 years. Because if the value of this program in terms of new transfers of state revenue to local government of $220 to $230 million occurs in this manner, just as a consideration, if the tax rate in Providence is $60 and ours is at $18, for every dollar we get, they're getting 3 per vehicle. So it's a concern that needs to be aired out. I don't think that there will be adequate time for consideration with what's left of the legislative session, and I am concerned that it will create work. Not anything that we can't work with, but at the same time, it's just not in many communities' best interest the way this program's being put forward. But we will go forward just as is, and we'll report back to you once we see what legislative action, if any, is instituted by the General Assembly.
Thank you, Steve. Town Solicitor's report.
Just wanted to let you know that at your next meeting on the 26th, Amy Goins from my office will be here as I'll be on vacation.
Very good. Long overdue. That brings us to item number 12, appointments, 12A. Do we have any appointments for tonight?
I'll make a resolution to appoint Erica Estes to the South County Partnership for Prevention for a term to expire, Dale, I believe June 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And seeing no opposition, motion carries. Do we have any additional appointments?
I'll make another resolution to appoint Peter DiStefano to the Planning Board for a 3-year term to expire.
Are you recusing, Meg, on this?
Yes, I was going to say I will recuse myself from that vote.
Second.
May 2020, I think.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have 4 approvals and 1 recusal. Motion does carry. Moving on to new business, 13.
You want me to do some reappointments?
Oh, sure.
Clean them up?
Yeah.
Make a resolution to reappoint John Biafor to the Recreation Commission for a term to expire June 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And one more resolution to reappoint for a term expiring May of 2019 to the Route 38 Reconstruction Project Area Committee, Susan E. Spranger Axelrod.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. But moving on now to new business, 13D, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to East Winds Dry Cleaners, Post Road in East Greenwich for the dry cleaning and laundry services at the unit prices bid for the period of July 17th through June 30th, 2018. This was described in a memo recommended from the interim police chief to the town manager on May 24th. Any discussion, or do I hear a motion?
No changes in the prices.
Okay.
Motion to approve item 13D.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to G, a resolution authorizing awards of bid to the following for mechanical service contracts for electrical and plumbing services for a 2-year term from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th in accordance of 2019, in accordance with the terms and conditions of bid specifications at the prices that are listed below. I will not go through all of them. And as further described in a memorandum from the building official to the town manager dated May 24th.
Both contractors have been serving the town in past years. Support the recommendations presented.
I'll be recusing myself from this vote.
Make a motion to approve item 13G, awarding the bid for electrical to W.H. Holland Electric and for plumbing to Stedman and Kazunas.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh.
Do we take comments from citizens at this point? No? Okay.
It's too late.
We have 4 approvals and 1 recusal on this motion. Moving on to H, a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute a contract with the Washington County Regional Planning Council, 344 Main Street, to conduct an inventory of existing street lights at a cost of $8 per fixture, as further described in a memorandum from the Public Services Director on June 1st, 2017, the PRISM street lighting inventory.
The town has about 1,413 lights that we're aware of at this point. At the $8, we're looking at a contract of around $11,300 for the initial work that's necessary as the first step toward moving for an acquisition on the street lights in the town. Recommend approval as presented in John's memo.
So moved.
We have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to I, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to UniFirst Corporation, Lambert Lynn Highway in Warwick for uniform leasing services at the unit price bid for a 3-year term from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020, and as further described in a memorandum dated June 1st from the Public Services Director to the town manager.
As you know, this was the sole bidder for this service for the next 3-year contract.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve item 13I is presented.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to J, a resolution authorizing the abatement of uncollectible tangible personal property taxes for the year 2006 in the amount of $2,663.51, and uncollectible motor vehicle taxes for 2006 in the amount of $11,858.36, for a combined total of uncollectible 2006 taxes in the amount of $14,521.87. And that's further described in a memorandum from the Finance Director dated June 6th to the Town Manager.
As noted in the memorandum from Chris Sunderland, the town, after 10 years, the taxes will be non-collectible. What we're looking at is $14,500 out of a total tax levy of $57.5 million. The overall uncollectible rate is 0.03%. In other words, you're more pure than ivory soap at 99.9%. I think it demonstrates the professionalism of the collection agency within the community, as well as the steps that the Finance Department has taken in terms of using an outside law office to be able to look for collection efforts after our in-house collection efforts have failed. Recommend council approve at the 14,521 number as presented on the agenda this evening.
Motion to approve item 13J as presented.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to K, this is the resolution authorizing the fund transfers as have been shown to us on Exhibit 2.
On a yearly basis, we look at the close of the fiscal year at dollars that would be available to promote or advance projects that have been listed in the capital improvement program or are items that are necessary within operation budgets. On Exhibit 2, we've documented 10 specific items as far as departmental transfers that would be made to various reserve funds. Going through that listing, the first with the Finance Department would be $7,500 to go toward purchase of a multi-purpose copying machine, something that we would have to acquire. We'll acquire it this year rather than putting it off to the following year. Second item was $18,000 to the Technology Improvement Fund, and this would be used for upgrading the virtual server equipment that the town uses in our systems, our IT systems. This is also a part of the capital improvement program where we are setting aside money for the server replacement equipment. The third item is $30,000 from the police department's budget that would go to the Public Safety Capital Improvement Reserve Fund for the value of $30,000 for the speed alert traffic control display units. That item is on the agenda this evening for council approval should the transfer be approved. We're also looking at a $25,000 transfer to the Harbor Patrol capital equipment replacement. This would be to provide an additional $25,000 over the budgeted $25,000 for the purchase and replacement of 2 patrol boats with 1 new boat that would serve dual purposes. This would allow us to purchase it ahead of this time next year. The fifth item is a $5,000 transfer for outfitting the pickup truck that the council approved at the last meeting. What we found is a lot of the items that were options within that truck purchase can be acquired at a much cheaper price with self-installation through the town's divisions. Number 6 was a transfer of $10,000 to the Public Services Office's Building Fund. That would provide us with greater flexibility in modernizing the space used by the EMS division, which is in that building 12 hours a day at this time. Item 7 is a $20,000 transfer to EMS capital equipment. This will be money to be set aside for equipment as well as future purchases of replacement vehicles for EMS. $60,000 would go, number 8, to the Public Works Capital Improvement Fund to assist in paying down future costs associated with equipment purchases that are incorporated into the capital improvement program. $90,000, which is in the capital budget, is a transfer from operations to fund many of the improvements in the road improvement program. And the last $7,500, the technology improvement fund for the library's use, where we need to replace the desktop computers. Computers at the library system in the past have been all purchased through the Champlin Foundation as grants. Champlin has moved away from the equipment replacements. Their objective was to begin the programs and to get all libraries in the state set up for IT purposes, but not to have that as an ongoing initiative. So now going forward, we're going to see larger expenses that'll be associated with equipment that'll be municipal in nature. This would be the first time that we'd be looking at that type of technology enhancements with that transfer. We're also looking at the $425,000 that's budgeted on an annual basis from the general operating budget, which would go to post-employment benefits, our OPREB program. This is a transfer that is recognized as an expense within the town's general fund budget. What we're also recommending is second-year funding of a $250,000 transfer. That $250,000 transfer would go to the Town Hall Improvement Fund, which is a holding agency for other capital projects. This would give us $500,000 set aside for the streetlight acquisition and improvement program. With that $500,000, we would be in a position to be able to A, purchase the lights from Grid, as well as potentially being able to replace with LEDs. The cost of the controllers may be a different dollar appropriation that will be necessary through the capital improvement program or at this time next year, based on, we expect this schedule to take us into the spring of 2018. Overall, we're looking at $273,000 in transfers from operating department budgets, as well as the $425,000 to OPEB and the $250,000 for the streetlight program, for a total transfer of $948,000. We're still forecasting, even with these revisions and transfer outs, to finish the fiscal year with about a $1.2 to $1.3 million surplus. We use $600,000 a year from the fund balance to offset property tax requirements in the 17-18 year. So really the net effect would be about $600,000 over. That on a budget between municipal and school, which is in the 70, the levy is at $72 million and overall budget's at plus $90 million. So what we're looking at this point is those transfers as a recommendation to the council. At the next council meeting, we'll have the same budget resolutions that we normally do, the management of the tax collection and setting min-max on the levy itself. Glad to answer any questions the council may have on the recommended actions presented this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 13K along with the resolutions that are included in Exhibit 2.
Second. All those in favor?
I'd just like to comment that town finance staff does an incredible job. Steve and Trish, thank you.
We appreciate your confidence.
Aye. I don't know if we all voted there. Did we all vote?
I stepped on you.
That's okay.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay. Seeing no nays, this absolutely does get approved. Moving on to L, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Automatic Temperature Controls in Cranston for a licensed HVAC contractor for municipal facilities from July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, with the option to extend the contract for 1 or 2 additional years, subject to an annual review in accordance to the terms and conditions at the bid specification pricing.
Again, this will be the first time we're using this lowest qualified bidder. It's a 3-year contract, which we have first-year contract requirements on, and then the second 2 years, provided that we're satisfied with the services provided. This is for just the police department, public safety building, and the animal control building. We've kept that separate from the HVACs based on the specialization, particularly in the public safety building.
Motion to approve item 13L.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to N, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Atlantic Control Systems in Exeter, Rhode Island for a municipal subcontractor excavating services at the unit prices bid for a 3-year term from July 1, 17 through June 30th, 2020, and as further described from a memo from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager on June.
We've used this vendor since, I think, 1999. We're certainly satisfied with the services provided.
Motion to approve item 13N as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to O, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Liberty Chevrolet in Wakefield, Massachusetts for a 2017 Chevrolet utility body truck with snowplow in the amount not to exceed $41,065, including a trade-in, with authorization that $6,065 of the funding be expended from the water fund's unrestricted net assets. And this is further described in a memorandum dated June 5th from the Public Services Director to our Town Manager.
This truck was bid out with the truck that the council approved at the last meeting with the Communications Department. Similar situation where we're taking deducts on the items where we can purchase the options at a lesser fee. We recommend council's approval as presented in the agenda this evening.
Motion to approve item 13O as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Seeing no, okay, oppositions, we'll move on to P, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Univar USA for sodium hypochlorite at a unit bid price of .7360 per gallon, and is further described in a memorandum dated June 6th to the Town Manager from the Public Services Director.
Items P, Q, and R are the annual contracts for acquisition of either the sodium hydrochlorite, the sodium bisulfate, or the sodium chloride. I'd recommend council approve as presented on the agenda tonight for each of those 3 items.
Can we take them all together as one motion?
Motion to approve items P, Q, and R as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Moving on to S, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to New England Asphalt Services for the unit price of $1.83 per square foot for single-treated stone seal with latex, for seal coating and for classic seal coating, with the total sum cost for all pavement management services in the above not to exceed $260,000. Again, this was described in a memorandum dated June 6th from the Public Services Director to our Town Manager.
I would note that on this item, we are not recommending the lowest bidder. We're going to second bid on the stone sealing and the microsurfacing. On the stone sealing, we're looking at a price differential of around $1,400, and on the stone sealing, we're looking at I think a difference of around, we're talking about $14,000, John? $30,000 difference on that $260,000 contract for the reasons enumerated in John's memorandum.
Make a motion we approve item 13S as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to T, I think a lot of constituents will be happy to see this. A resolution authorizing an award of contract to All Traffic Solutions for the purchase of 2 speed alert and traffic control display trailers in the amount not to exceed $30,000 per unit. Pricing available on a GSA contract. And this is further described in a memorandum dated May 17th from the interim police chief to the town manager.
We're looking at 2 units that would be used by all of our municipal departments, particularly with public safety and public services. These units would be placed in areas where we get complaints of excessive speed as a means of trying to provide traffic calming. It also gives us opportunities to be able to provide multiple different messages within the sign based on time of the day, also to measure what traffic volumes are, as well as traffic speeds in 1-hour increments. It can be used through the internet for us to either retrieve the data or to be able to change the signs. We would hope to be able to use these in those areas that we've got the major complaints. Petunic Beach Road, Middlebridge Road, Biscuit City, Tuckertown. All of these roads are roads that we provide police services on a periodic basis once we see speeds starting to get higher or complaints. These would help us be able to try to minimize some of the traffic hours that are there and hopefully be able to enhance public health and safety. We'll also provide public works with an opportunity to have safer workspace when they're in roads.
Thanks. Motion to approve item 13T as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 9:26.